The Power of Perseverance with Kathy Garver. You know her from A Family Affair and other places because she's amazing. So Kathy is taking time with us today to talk with us about perseverance and also some more about her journey in her life and why even perseverance is important to her, because it's a really big topic. So Kathy, welcome so much to the Someone Gets Me show. And I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
Thank you very much, Diana. I'm glad finally somebody gets me, and maybe some people out there will get me too.
I'm sure a lot of people will get you. And one of the first questions I have for you is, have there been times in your life that people didn't get you, that you looked around and you're like, I'm the only one seeing what I'm seeing, or people were just kind of missing the real you?
Many times. And I even remember growing up, especially, and during that teen period and trying to figure out who I was. In my junior high school, we had the special class for people that had IQs over 135, and we were kind of brought together that way. But then we moved and I started junior high in another way. And I was still taking the classes that they call them gifted classes now, but they were just the higher classes. Those high school friends are still my very best friends today. But then I would go to some parties and feel like, where am I and who am I and why was I put on this earth and what is even the earth? All the transcendental kinds of questions that a teenager asks. And I remember climbing up a tree. I must have been 14, 15, and just sitting in the tree at a party, looking at the people and saying, well, this is very interesting, and trying to communicate with them. But I communicated better with the tree.
Oh my God. I did a similar thing at a big party where I just sat on a couch kind of off from everybody else. And I go, I don't know how to talk to these people. And I was talking to the dog more, and I felt more comfortable in that way. I so totally get that. And I think a lot of people who have the visionary, more gifted way of seeing things have that experience when they're younger. So how did you get into the whole show business acting? Like, what was that journey and how did it start?
Well, I was living in Los Angeles and my mother put me into a singing and dancing class at Medlin Studios. And that was the same studio that had discovered Shirley Temple. And so, of course, she thought that I was going to be the next Shirley Temple and put my hair in ringlets, and I learned to sing and dance, and it really was fun. I enjoyed doing that a lot, but I didn't start, and that was when I was 3. I didn't start working professionally until I was 8. And one of the first movies I did was The Night of the Hunter with Charles Laughton was the director, first time he had ever directed. And there was Shelley Winters and Robert Mitchum and Lillian Gish and a fabulous array of stars and me at 8. And then it was then not considered really a good movie. It did not get reviews. It was way above its time. And now it has been known as one of the top horror films that has ever been made. It's like 100th on the list of best horror films. Cash, I think, is the name of the paper that lists all that. And then I did the 10 Commandments. So I went from horror to godliness in
what a
almost
switch.
the same year. Yeah. So, and that was really marvelous. And that was, of course, directed by the famous Cecil B. DeMille. This was not the silent version, but I was just hired as an extra. And I was part of the Exodus scene going out where we were going into the desert with Moses leading the slaves out. So I'm in this little rickety wagon, and all of a sudden I heard this great big voice yell out, "Don't let that little girl's face get in the camera." And I said, "Is he talking to me?" And I said, "Where is he? Is that God? We are doing the 10 Commandments." Well, it wasn't God, but Cecil B. DeMille was on this great big crane. So he was way up in the sky yelling out. And so the assistant director came and he put a little blanket over my head. And I did the scene. Afterwards, he lifted me off the wagon and I talked to the great C.B. DeMille. And pretty soon he wrote scenes into me in the movie for me with Charlton Heston. So that was really kind of my breakthrough, being all these lines with Charlton Heston in one of the biggest epics that had ever been made. Right. And then I just started working. Got an agent. That was the first thing my agent got me. And then I guest starred on a lot of the TV shows that were on at the time. I had a semi-regular part in a television show called Alice, and I worked all that time.
And so how did your family handle this?
I was the last of 4 children. And my sister, who was super, super smart and graduated UCLA at 19, was already out of the house by the time I started working. And my 2 brothers were brothers, and they were interested in playing football and doing other things. But very supportive. They have always been very supportive. And I have really been one of the lucky child stars. I wrote a book about child stars. This is my book, Ex-Child Stars, Where Are They Now? And this is available on Amazon and on my website, of course. And one of the biggest conclusions of why so many child stars did not make the transition from being a well-renowned personage and well-reviewed and famous and make that jump over to a successful adult was primarily, I think, for 3 reasons. One, the parents took all their money, and when they got to be 18, they didn't have anything, and they were bitter and resentful, as they well should be. And 2, because they didn't have really an education or any other skill sets on which to maneuver and to move on. And 3, because of the depression, because they weren't in the limelight anymore, and they went from the cute little kid to the awkward teenager, and nobody was buying in Hollywood, and they weren't getting jobs. They became depressed, and the emotionality just led them to drugs. And that is very sad. I am so grateful that I never got on drugs. I just drink wine every night, Chardonnay, cupcake Chardonnay. But it really was a serious thing that happened to the child stars.
Yes, especially when they're not supported or things happen and they get a lot of resentment. And visionaries and creatives tend to be more emotionally sensitive anyway. And so when things happen that are big like that and there's no one around to help explain it or help them or show them what to do, that's really a tricky situation to be in, you know? So
yes, my parents were very, very supportive. They saved everything that I made. And when we moved from Los Angeles to San Bernardino, we're kind of out of the limelight. It was a blessing in disguise because I was able to do that kind of awkward transition away from the limelight. So when I came back to LA and started UCLA, I was, more developed and knew a lot more of my identity. So that was very helpful. And then my loving mother said, well, now you know this acting thing may not work out. You should have some insurance. What are you majoring in?
And what did you major in?
I majored in speech. That's why I talk a lot, with a minor in psychology. And then I went back later and got a master's in theater arts, but it was more of a liberal arts education for, sociology and English, et cetera.
Right. Oh, that's really, really fun. So tell us about The Family Affair. How was that show? What was that like for you? And my biggest question is, how are you the same and different than your character was?
It was a great show. And when I went on the interview for that show, my agent, Hazel McMillan, had called my mom and said, oh, we've got a great interview. They've already sold the pilot to this new show. It's going to go on. They have everything except for the teenage sister. They actually had cast her, but she went to Europe and I guess gained some weight and then came back. And anyway, she was not hired to go on. But they wanted this blonde, blue-eyed girl. Now, back then, I did not have blonde locks. I had dark hair. And I have dark eyes. Well, there was nothing I could do about the eyes. But my mom brought this stuff called Streaks and Tips back in the 60s. I don't know if you've heard of that, Diane. And you just spray this stuff on and your hair turns like gold, as what it turned mine to, and like a helmet. It was so gold and brassy. But I was sitting with the producer and he's looking at me. He says, what's wrong with your hair? I said, my hair? And he said, yeah, it's turning green. Well, that started the conversation, and we talked some more. I did a screen test, and then the rest is history. It was wonderful. And my character and Sissy's character is really an amalgam. In my way of acting, I learned a lot from Brian Keith and Sebastian Cabot, each of whom approached acting in a totally different way. Sebastian was from England, and he studied and he analyzed things. He got word for word, and it was hard for him to get word for word. So he practiced and got it perfect. Brian, on the other hand, would come in and say, well, what are we doing today? And he'd look over the script and he says, okay. And he went from moment to moment. So it was a nice combination of Brian and Sebastian. And what I did was take both of those styles. So I analyze the scene, I see what's happening, I figure out a character. And then when I'm actually shooting, I go moment to moment. But I'd already done everything like that. And there were some times when the writer would say, and I would say, look, everybody is wearing mini skirts. She is wearing this dress. It's just right above her knees. I want to wear mini skirts. And they said, well, I'm sorry, you can't. But I want to be in, like today. They were right, however. And this show has really never gone off the air. And it is classic. And I think one of the reasons it's classic because the styles are not extreme. Nobody's wearing mini skirts and people are wearing, something that you could walk out today. And since I'm a potential hoarder, I even have some of the things. Diane, you're old when you can wear your own vintage clothes.
Right?
Yeah. I still have some things in the closet, but I don't wear them too often because it's going to be the 55th anniversary of Family Affair next year. Odd since I'm 39.
55 years. So I have a question before we get to that, because I want to go to the anniversary part. But when I'm thinking about how you were mentored with the strict, rigid habit, like precise and precision, and let me see what it is and stay in the moment. And what a perfect combination of like live and in-person mentoring, unofficially or officially, because you were there and they were showing you the way because that was their style. So how have you expanded on that over the years?
Well, after the television series, and then I was saying, well, I'm so well known as this particular character.
Right.
And it started because I had some friends from Tel Aviv and from Israel. And Family Affair was like the number one show there. Well, they only had 3 channels, or it could have been 2. But everybody in the whole country watched this show. And so they did a musical adaptation of theater for Family Affair. And they gave me the script. And so I learned Hebrew phonetically for the show. And to sing Hani Habata Rishona. And so we did this whole show in Hebrew musical. So I was over in Tel Aviv, and I said, I really don't feel like going back to the States because I don't know how many jobs I'm getting. So I went to England, and I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. And so that also added to my pool of understanding of theater, and I learned a lot at the Royal Academy. Then when I came back, I was just in my 20s, early 20s. When I came back to the States, then I started doing a lot of dinner theaters. That was a big thing back then with dinner theaters in the 70s and starting up to the 80s. So I learned a lot in front of the audience doing a lot of dinner theaters. And so I added to my pool. And then when I stopped doing so many dinner theaters, I say in my other book, Surviving Sissy, I will hold it up for you. This is show and tell. Surviving Sissy. I indicate how an actor's life is very interesting. And I taught voiceover for 20 years. So when you have you don't have a steady job and you're an independent contractor and one job finishes and say, well, am I ever going to get another job? So I would tell my students, you have to make your skill set as wide as possible. So if you finish a stage presentation, don't hold up your nose in the air and say, well, I don't do TV, or I won't do film, I'm a stage actor. Well, you're going to just shoot yourself in the foot. And if you want to stay on that same level, or, theater actors don't make as much as commercial actors, I think it's very important to be able to go from one style to the next. And each of those styles has a different presentation, because the theater, you're very big. And it's just like you're whispering to a person. And then you're doing a commercial, and so many of them are just so bright and light. And there's nothing wrong with doing narrations for industrials. I lived in San Francisco for a while, and so many companies, and they wanted hosts. So I went from doing stage, and then I said, well, my agent called me. He says, well, we have this commercial for you. It's just your voice. It's a voiceover. I said, what's a voiceover? I've never done a voiceover. I don't know what that is. And so he says, well, just go on. And I said, okay. So it turned out that this voiceover was for tuna. And so here's your script. Oh, okay. I like tuna. And they said, okay, now say it a different way. Okay. I like tuna. Okay. Say it a different way. Says, I like tuna. And it was really awful. So I enrolled in a voiceover class right away. And I learned how to do many different voices. And that became a whole career also for me. I've starred in 5 animated series, Firestar and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And they're actually bringing out that's another thing for 2021. They're bringing out a little 6-inch Firestar figure. She's a super heroine. And so I'm going to be having those around and signing them. And maybe Firestar will have her own series from Marvel, and we'll see how that goes. But I did a lot of voiceovers. So you're doing stage, it doesn't work. He says, well, and voiceover now is so much easier because being sheltered as we are, wherever we go, I have my own little microphone and set up where I can do voiceovers. And then I just did a movie last month and starred in a movie called Old Man Jackson, where I played Mrs. Jackson. And right before that, I did a pilot for a TV show that we are this close to selling. So, I mean, in my estimation, you have to be able in the entertainment business to do a lot of things. If you're an actor, I think musicians have a different road. But I think for the general person who is an actor, get all those things in front of you. Even for voiceover, you don't just do animated cartoons, you do narration. I've done 80 audio books. I've taught it. I've won 4 Audie Awards.
Yeah. Great.
And commercials,
right?
AER. So all of those fall under the umbrella of voiceovers, and all those things sustain you. It's great to, be as creative as you want, but you still have to pay the mortgage and the insurance and buy food.
Right. I always say all the time that visionaries and creative people still have bills to pay. And our craft is very important, and it takes effort and dedication and focus.
But they don't call it the entertainment business for nothing. It is a business.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think that, you have to learn how to do finance as well as letting yourself go in whatever creative endeavor you're doing, painting or just acting in the moment or whatever. You still, in my estimation, it's like taking Sebastian, very straight, and Brian living in the moment and putting that into a financial type of business, financial and creativity.
Right. Taking care of all of the facets of it. That's why I like that they came together kind of at that perfect time of your life as these two seemingly opposite, but yet really creative, amazing people. But their style was different enough that what a great way for you to just see in real life, all different kinds of ways for you to develop your own way and see how their way worked for them in real life in action. It wasn't all just theory or somebody saying, well, do this, do that. You could see it. And I think that, to me, that sounds like it was really amazing, It
was. You kind of look like Lillian Gish.
Oh, thank you.
Has anyone told you that?
No.
Really? You look, your cheeks and everything. As I say, she was in Night of the Hunter. Wonderful, fabulous actor.
Wow.
And
cool.
Annabelle Gish, yeah.
Right. When my hair was shorter, people used to tell me I looked like Sally Fields. And but now that it's longer, people haven't said that.
People tell me I look like Sally Field. I actually did a game show recently, and I was Dolly Parton. I pretended I was a Dolly Parton sister.
Oh. I could just see you doing it. It's like you're a multi-potentialite. You can do all of these different things, and you write books, and you have cookbooks out, and you do all these other things. And so that's the true way of visionary, gifted type of people. There's all different kinds of facets, and you think you know one part of them, but you're delighted that there's all of these other parts coming to this table, even if you don't see it right away. And so let's talk about perseverance, because you talk about that, and you've had to have perseverance in lots of different ways all through your career. So what would you say if somebody was listening to you right now and maybe they're struggling with keeping on, or, that perseverance energy in them is kind of a little low and they need to kind of get going. What is something that you could say to them, or some advice you might want to share with them just to help them keep going?
It's just that eventually it will come. And sometimes you're working and working and working, and all of a sudden it's not doing it. But the answer is always ahead of you. So you go away for a minute and you come back and say, well, there it is all the time. I should have thought that before. Give yourself the time to persevere, to reach your goal. And even if you're starting to say, I'm never going to get here, you will eventually. And even if it isn't exactly the thing that you want, there's something bigger that knows what is exactly right for you. And it may formulate itself in something else, but it's right there. And that happens. That happens a lot. And it happens in so many ways. Even when I got married, I wanted to get married. Why aren't I married? And, time is moving. I was 30, I was 31, I was 33. I said, look, all these people are married. Why aren't I? So I went to Palm Springs. And so you have to put it in your head what you want. And you have to put out that energy and that positive energy, do away with any of the negativity and say, okay, I'm just putting out positive energy. So I said, the next person I meet, I'm going to marry. So I was in Palm Springs, and my friend Arlene Gawanka, she was on Mayberry RFD. She did some things, and she was at a music industry tennis tournament. And so she said, oh, you're going to be in Palm Springs? Me too. She says, I'm going to play some tennis. We need a fourth. You come along. I said, okay. So I met her there, and she and her boyfriend, and I'm waiting for my partner. And I said, okay, the next person I meet, I am going to marry. So in comes a 6'3" guy galomping on, we've already discussed, we're 5 feet. Right. Here comes the 6'3" guy, and we start playing tennis. And then he, in a prophettorial kinds of way, says, finally, a woman that can play tennis. I said, I'm going to get married. And I went, oh, okay. That may have been off the top of his head, but that was really in the bottom of my head. And so we got married 3 years later, and we are celebrating our 40th anniversary next year.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you met him, did you really know he was the one you were going to marry beyond just visioning it and having the energy out there?
No. I mean, I have met other people I look at and say, oh my gosh, I mean, this is like a soulmate. And I don't know if David is my soulmate, but he is the person I was supposed to marry, I think. I know. And he's a really lovely person, very, very nice and cute, and puts up with me. So, yeah. But there are different relationships along the way.
Oh, sure. Is he a visionary like you?
No, he's not. He is not. My son, now, I didn't get married till I'm 35. So at 40, I'm going tick, tick, tick. I would like to have a child here. He already had a son. And so, no, you don't need it. I said, yes, I want a baby. I want my son. So at 45, I had this wonderful child. And he is very much like me, and he's very sensitive, and he is a visionary, and he is the best cook. He can see an empty space and just totally see what should go there. And he is here.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I love that. That's so cool. And so visionaries, I think there's a special place in the whole world for all that ability to see and bring forward and create and elevate the energy to inspire. Like I think that high energy inspires people. So tell us a little bit about this 55th anniversary reunion of Family Affair and some of the things that you were telling me before we started recording about, so that everybody can be excited in your words, because I'm thrilled for it. And I think it's a great way to really honor, time tested, beautiful. I mean, that show is amazing. And all the work all of you all did in that show is amazing. And you can tell it's amazing because 55 years later, people are still celebrating it.
It is amazing. It really has not been off the air since 1966 when it debuted. And as you say, it's a 55th anniversary, and we have a lot of things planned for it. My Surviving Sissy book that I did about 5 years ago, they're bringing it out in paperback. So that will be the debut of its paperback version. And to also herald that, there is a wonderful museum, the Hollywood Museum, right on Highland in Hollywood. And hopefully it will be open by April and May, and no more lockdown and no more sheltering, and people can actually go out. Right. And so we'll have a whole exhibit of all of the things that were in Family Affair. This was right during the years where they first started merchandising. And they really hadn't done so much of that beforehand. But 20th Century Fox was doing that. CBS put their hands in. So I have like lunch boxes and their coloring books and their view masters, and there's wonderful photos. And so we'll have an exhibit at the Hollywood Museum, and I'll be signing my book. And then maybe later on your Friday features, you can let your audience know exactly when it's coming. And so we're doing lots of that. We have a new show called Aunt Sissy that is a spinoff from Family Affair. It's not a sequel, but it's a spinoff, and what my character would be doing now. And Sissy becomes Aunt Sissy, kind of like Uncle Bill. So that will also be debuting in 2021, as well as a new book that I have. I wrote this book, Holiday Recipes for a Family Affair, with Scott Weaver, who is also a director as well as a writer. But we are doing this book to go along with a TV show that we are doing. Used to be called TV Dinners, but we're glad that we're not naming our show TV Dinners anymore because the trademark is a little dicey. So it will be Retro Celebrity Eat and Greet. And so we will have the television show that goes along with it, where the pilot featured Butch Patrick from the Munsters and Larry Thomas from No Soup for You, the Nazi, and Lisa Loring. And we take the old TV dinners and we redo them, refresh them, make them healthy for today. And then we have a sit down with our celebs saying, where are you now and what are you doing?
Oh, that's great. So the recipes in the book are the modern day healthy version of the old school TV dinners.
Exactly.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that I was about to ask you what they were, and then you said it. I'm like, oh, let me get this right. I love that idea. That is going to be so fun. And I love that the multi-dimensional nature from the beginning of your career, through all of the different changes, and then also through this whole lockdown and everything, that you have been able to persevere, but also to bring all of your talents to the table and allow yourself the freedom to not just like only silo yourself into one spot. So,
and it's important, because I think of it as I get older every day, that we are given so many talents, and no matter what, at one talent or a lot of talents or whatever that talent is. And I don't want to leave this particular without getting all those talents out, with being fulfilled and being blessed with those talents, and then using them all up. I want to use them all up.
Right. Right, exactly. Use them all, let them all out, let them all go, and I love that. And I think that speaks to your whole ability to persevere and keep going. And it's a natural thing that you would talk about perseverance, because it's taken that. It's not all easy. It's, it sounds easy to sit here and talk about, but it's hard work, and it's dedication, and it's focus, and it's doing the hard things and the things you don't want to do in order to create the magical, amazing things that are just so fulfilling. So
yeah, because you really, in writing a book, you have to, this has got to be in at the publishers, or you say, I'm never going to learn those lines, and now I'm going to have to go through traffic to try and get to an interview. All of that stuff has to be given before you can totally enjoy it. But now I'm getting to be, again, older, and say, I said, well, even this is joyful, being on the horrible freeways of LA and listening to something nice and nice music. So make the best of it.
Yeah, exactly. So make the best of it, everybody, no matter what it is, and let all your talents hang out and shine, because things happen over a lifetime that are amazing, and we just keep building and building and building and building. So is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you had on your heart that you wanted to share with everybody today? Because I know we've covered a lot, and there's so much more. We could talk for hours and hours and hours. But was there anything on your heart that you really felt that led to say or wanted to talk about that I didn't ask about?
I'm just thinking that I think everybody should be proud of themselves and who they are in whatever circumstances that they are in, and to be joyful every day and to make the most of who you are.
Oh, well, that's beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So your final question of the interview is, if there was going to be a billboard out in the whole world that everyone was going to see that would have your name on it, what would that slogan, what would that statement be?
I love my family.
I love my family. Yes, that's beautiful. I love that. So everybody, you've been listening to Kathy Garver. She's amazing, right? All of her contact information and ways to buy her books and everything are in the show notes for you. And we could talk for hours on end, but we're not going to. So there, if you want to follow her and you want to learn more about her, then go do that, because you're going to find a dynamic, amazing, multi-potential powerhouse of a woman who has persevered through life and all kinds of amazing things to create goodness for all of us. And thank you for all the work that you've done and all the entertainment that you have provided and the laughs and the goodness that you've brought to the world through all your talents. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us.
Thank you, Diane. I know we're going to remain friends far after this.
Oh, yes, I'm sure. Okay, everybody. So make sure you follow Kathy and let her know you heard her here on Someone Gets Me. And remember to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star and you're here on purpose with a purpose. So go out there and use all of your skills. Let them all hang out. And until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, be well.